Hi, this is Wendy, and welcome to my No Frills Java video series. I don't do any fancy video production or anything, so you might hear traffic in the background, or my cat meowing, or my next door neighbors fighting, but whatever. When you're coding in the real world, you're hearing these and lots of other noises, so just suck it up and get used to it. I'm going to show you some Java stuff, and I don't have the time or inclination to create fancy videos with animation and all that other useless production stuff. We're just going to learn and code with Java. Now, in this series of videos, I'm going to introduce you to the basics of regular expressions and how to use them in a Java program. In this first video, we'll talk about the basics of regular expressions, including the syntax, where to try and test your expressions, and we'll write a few really basic expressions. In the second video, we'll talk about using character classes to match ranges of characters and groups of characters in your expressions. In the third video, we'll see how we can use quantifiers to specify how many of a set of characters we want to match in a string. In the fourth video, we'll talk about escaping special characters and also about how you can use meta characters as shortcuts for common expressions. In the fifth video, we'll learn how to create more advanced expressions using capture groups. And finally, in the sixth and seventh videos, I'll show you how to use regular expressions in a Java program. Now, regular expressions are special expressions that perform pattern matching. In other words, you use a special syntax of codes and characters to search for patterns inside a string. For example, you could search a string to see if it contains a valid floating point value or decimal value, or to see if it contained a proper Canadian postal code. Now, how are regular expressions really useful? Imagine we had a program where we want the user to enter a temperature in Fahrenheit and convert it into Celsius. So I have my scanner, I have my input from the user, and I have my calculation and my output. Even if you don't know Java right now, it's not that big of a deal. If you're just here to learn regular expressions, don't worry about it. You don't need to know Java right now for these first few videos. So when we look at a program like this one, what would happen if we run it and the user enters an invalid value, such as a value that contains a letter or a symbol? So let's say, for example, I'm being a smartass and I type 2 for 2 degrees, TWO. When I press enter, my program throws what we call in Java an input mismatch exception. And if you're using a different language, it probably does something similar. What we have here is this input mismatch exception. In Java, when we use the next double method, this is just a method that reads in keyboard input from the user, and it takes that input and it converts it into a decimal or double, we call it a double in Java, or a floating point value. So when you type something that cannot be converted into a decimal number, then Java barfs all over your screen. It doesn't like it. It's actually not able to convert that value. Now, if you've done some Java programming in the past, or even with another language, you might assume you can avoid this exception with a try-catch block or something similar. But for reasons I'll get into in some other video and some other lesson, this is actually very bad practice. In general, you should not use a try-catch block for mistakes that the user makes by inputting incorrect values. It's a waste of processing. But again, that's another video for another time. Now, perhaps you might think, hey, it's a good idea if I just grab this input as a string instead, because if I grab it as a string and the user types in characters that aren't digits or a decimal point, then it's not going to throw an input mismatch exception. So if I alter this statement and change it now to capture the user input solely as a string, that's fine, it's not going to crash. But I do need to calculate with this Fahrenheit temperature, so I am going to have to turn it into a floating point value. And in Java, we would do that by using the parse double method. Like that. Let me just scroll this a little bit. Again, it's not really that important to know Java if you're watching this video because you just wanted to learn regex. It's fine. Don't worry too much about it. So what this does, it takes a string and it will convert that into a decimal value for our Fahrenheit temperature variable. And again, I'm going to recompile that and I'm going to run it. And I'm going to type in my TWO, and we'll see that it actually does the same thing. We just get a slightly different exception, but it's for the same reason. Like the next double method that scanner owns, the parse double method that the double wrapper class owns is not able to take anything that is not digits and a decimal point and convert it into a decimal value. It just can't do that. So again, this causes a number format exception, and this is also, again, something that you should not handle with a try-catch block. The proper way to handle this kind of problem, pretty much anything that deals with incorrect user inputs, is to make sure that your program doesn't crash to start with. And that's not by writing things like try-catch blocks. This is exactly where regular expression syntax comes in handy. So what we could do, and this is just some generic pseudocode, so it doesn't matter what language you're using. So what we do is we grab our input as a string, and then we use an if statement, and we check to see if the input is all digits and exactly one decimal. It's very important to make sure that if you're asking for a floating point value or a decimal number, that you only have one decimal point, because all of those things we just looked at in pretty much every language, they can't handle multiple decimal points either. So make sure it's exactly one decimal point. And then if it's true, if it does match the pattern that we want for a valid decimal number, then we can convert our data, calculate the Celsius value, display the Celsius value. But if this is not true, if it does not match our pattern for a decimal number with digits and exactly one decimal, then we will display an error message. Again, if you haven't done much programming up to now, that's totally fine. If you're just here to learn regular expressions, we're going to do that right now. What's really cool is that regular expression syntax is widely supported, so you can use what you learn here not only with Java, but with pretty much every other language too. You can use regular expressions in JavaScript, PHP, Python, and many other languages. You can even use regular expressions to validate input in an HTML form. So if you're about to learn HTML forms with the input element and all that stuff, you can use the pattern attribute and give it a RegEx pattern, and then you can basically do some client-side validation of user inputs in any web application using HTML forms. So let's learn how to write regular expressions first, and then if you're interested later, we'll see how to use them in a Java program. The general syntax of a regular expression is we have a / and then our pattern followed by another / and then any number of flags. Generally, there's 3 that we're going to look at. Now, the pattern is the actual regular expression, the pattern that you want to match. A pattern consists of one or more tokens. Tokens are the individual parts of the pattern. So for example, if you had a college course code that requires exactly 4 letters followed by exactly 5 digits, then you might have a pattern that consists of 2 tokens. One that says there needs to be 4 letters and a second token that says there needs to be 5 digits. Don't worry right now about how we're going to tell it 4 letters and 5 digits. We're going to get there. We're just taking it slow. So the flags area is where you then identify any settings that you want for the expression. And the most common flags that we generally use, there's 3 of them that I'm going to show you. The first one is G for global match. We'll actually use this one for almost all of our examples today. And this says that you want to search the entire string for multiple matches. For example, if we were looking for the word cat in a paragraph of text, the global flag indicates that we want to search for all the occurrences of the word cat, not just the first one. Without the global flag, it would only match the first occurrence, or would only locate the first occurrence of the word cat. Now, again, as I said in all of our examples today, I think most of them, we're going to actually use the global flag, but you'll probably find that when you start using regular expressions inside programming languages, you might not need the global flag, and you'll see why as we start to learn a little bit more about how RegEx works. The next flag we're going to talk about is the multi-line match, and this states that each individual line of text is considered a single input. Now, this one isn't going to make a lot of sense right now until we actually need it, but in the tester tool that we're going to use, by default, the entire text area box, where all of our text is considered a single input. And that's not necessarily going to lend itself to testing certain things like boundary characters, which I think pops up in, I think, the 4th or 5th video in this series. So we're going to talk more about the multi-flag a little bit later. So it's going to make more sense once we actually need it. Now, the last flag I'm going to look at with you is the I, case insensitive match. This one's pretty straightforward. This flag says that your pattern should ignore upper and lower case. So by default, patterns are actually case sensitive. sensitive. So if you're looking for a match for the word cat in all lowercase letters, that will not match a string that has cat with an uppercase C or all uppercase letters CAT. Using the case insensitive flag ensures that if you want to match the letters CAT in the word cat, it will find any combination of upper and lowercase letters. So that's a really handy one to use. Now here's a really simple example of an actual regular expression. So you see that we have the forward slash, a backslash D. You got to watch your forward and backslashes. You won't actually have to type the forward slashes in general at all, ever. Because most languages assume they're already there, and the tools that we're using also already have them there. So when you're typing a slash, it's generally probably going to be the backslash, and then a letter D, and then the number 3 inside curly braces. So in this example, the backslash D is a token that matches a single digit, and the 3 inside the curly braces means that we want exactly 3 of whatever the previous token is. So in this case, we want exactly 3 digits. So if you were to use this regular expression, it would match any sequence of exactly 3 digits appearing all together. Again, don't worry too much about the backslash D. I'm just trying to show you an example of the syntax. It's not until the next video we're actually going to start learning about things like backslash D and how all these things work. Now, after the second forward slash is where we would see our flags. In this case, we see the global flag, indicating that it's treating the entire block of text here in our tool as a single input field. So it's going to search for all the occurrences of 3 digits stuck together. Now, the best way to learn regular expressions is to try things, experiment with different patterns and strings, and explore what different patterns do with different strings. Now, there are several RegEx testers that you can use for free online. I recommend a few in my notes for this lesson or these videos, which I'll post in the video description in case you want to access it. But I do especially like RegExer and RegEx 101 because they have some really cool features like cheat sheets for quick reference, a breakdown of your regular expressions so you can see how it works, the ability to select different regular expression flavors. For example, there might be some variations between, say, JavaScript and some other language that supports regular expressions. Regular expression syntax is generally the same everywhere, but some technologies use them slightly differently. So, for example, the way you use a regular expression in JavaScript is pretty much like you'll see it used in the RegEx tools. But when you want to use the same expression in Java, there are a few minor differences, and we'll see this again in one of the last videos. In this video, I'm going to use regexer.com simply because it's the easiest to see in the video, but do feel free to use a different regular expression tester if you prefer. Like I said, there's lots out there. Use another one if you like a different one better. Now, when using the regular expression tester to learn and test out various regular expressions, you should have a good amount of text to practice on. So in my notes for these videos, which as I mentioned, I'm going to put in the video description, if you go to the RegEx tutorial section, there's a little pull down block here of dummy text that you can use. It's just sort of random bits of text and common bits of things that we often test with regular expressions. And so you can just kind of highlight the whole thing there like that. Copy it. I just pressed Control-C to copy it to the clipboard, and you can add it to what's in here or replace what's in here with the dummy text. Let me close some of this stuff so we can see everything just a little bit better. There we go. So I just pasted all the dummy text. Don't worry about what's happening here now. We're going to look at that next. So paste all the dummy text in there, and that'll allow us to start testing RegEx. And we may occasionally come in and add more text to this, and that's totally fine. So let's get started with the most basic regular expression, and this is a literal match. So a literal match looks for a set of literal or actual characters. So for example, if you just erase everything that's in, remember I said there's the forward slashes are already there and the global flag is already turned on, which is fine. And so if you go in between the 2 slashes and just type EX or any set of characters you like, if you don't like the letters EX, you can type something else. So I'm going to use TX. So this expression has 2 tokens. The first token is going to match the letter E, and the second token is going to match the letter X. And you'll notice in this particular RegEx tester, browser, if I hover over things, they give me information about the things I'm hovering over. So that's very helpful. So the first token is the E, the second token is the X. The flag, again, is the global flag, so it will find all occurrences in this entire giant block of text. It'll find all of the occurrences of the letter E, followed by the letter X. So because of the global flag, it will highlight all of those matches. If you remove the global flag, it would only highlight the first match it finds, which isn't very useful for learning regex. So we're going to leave the global flag on. If you ever want to play with the flags, turn them on and off, you can try and click them. I find it a bit difficult. I find it easier just to go over here and just open flags and select the flag I want. These are the first three. Don't worry about the last three. I'm not going to cover those. So there we go. So as I've typed in EX, and I'm just going to increase the font size just a little bit here. You might have noticed also on your screen, some of these characters are very light gray. I found out they didn't show up very well in the video, so I went in to the developers tools of the browser and changed it. There you go. It's easy to do. So now it's all easier to read. So if you look through your test data down here, your test string, you'll see there are a few occurrences of the E followed by the letter X. Sometimes when we start practicing with regex, it's going to appear difficult to like tell the difference between matches that are side by side. So being able to hover over the individual matches to see them, these numbers, I can't point to it with my mouse, but the numbers where it says match EX, that's the thing it found that matched. And then under that it has a range. That's the position in this big string. So this is the 314th and 315th character in this entire string. I don't know why. That might be helpful, I guess, if you get confused perhaps. And so then you'll see this one is the 347th and the 348th string. But you can see it's highlighting the individual matches. At any time, if you don't want to like search through all of this and try to find matches, you can always type sample data up here as well. So if I wanted to maybe type the word text, you'll see that it matches the EX in text. If I type TEX, what you'll find is that it's matching every occurrence, every individual set of two letters E followed by X. Notice that it's only matching the E immediately followed by the X. It's not matching an E by itself. So no, it's not matching the E's. It's not matching an X by itself, right? So it's not matching the X's. It's not matching an X followed by an E. It only matches an E followed by an X. So it's a literal match. It's matching literally. We're actually using the word literally correct in a conversation. It's literally matching the letter E followed by the letter X. Now notice that if I use uppercase EX in any of my strings, it's not matching uppercase, or mixed case, it's not matching any of those either. And that's because, as I mentioned earlier, these expressions are case sensitive. So if I wanted to, say, match the uppercase E followed by lowercase x, I would actually have to type an uppercase E. And you'll notice that of all these matches now, it only matches this one. Or similarly, if I wanted to do all uppercase, I could do this, capital E followed by capital X. And you'll notice it's only matching these three occurrences. These are three individual occurrences. That's an occurrence. You might need to stick your face right up to the screen. That's an occurrence, and that's an occurrence. When I take my cursor away, right, you can see the gray outline around them. I can't change that color. I tried to make it brighter. Nope. And if I move it away, you'll see there's a tiny little gap. I wish I could get a different pointer. There's a tiny little gap in between. So some of these you'll have to like stick your face really close if you're over 40 so that you can actually see them correctly. So like me, I've got my face right up there and you'll be able to tell because my voice will get louder or softer on the microphone because that's how I roll. I don't do any fancy video production or any of that stuff. Now, one way you could change this if you wanted to, because what if you don't care if it's uppercase or lowercase? You're probably thinking, hey, isn't that what this case insensitive flag is for? Yes, so you can open up the flags menu, select case insensitive, you'll see the eye pops up. So you'll see now it's matching all occurrences of EX, even the ones in all uppercase, the ones in mixed case, because it's now a case insensitive comparison. It doesn't care if they're uppercase or lowercase, it'll match the letter E followed by the letter X, no matter what case it's in. So for now, I'm going to turn off the case insensitive because I want to show you some other stuff that doesn't use the case insensitive flag. I'm actually going to show you some other ways to test for case insensitive letters and characters later. All right, so here's some exercises to practice what you've learned so far. Yes, you've actually learned a little bit about regular expressions, and practice is very, very important. The key to learning how to do regular expressions is to practice. So write the regular expressions to match the following sets of characters. So I'm looking for foo, F-O-O, in all uppercase letters, and then once you get that working, try foo in either upper or lowercase letters, and then try to see if you can write a regex that matches the number 1 followed by the number 2. So the 2 digits 1 followed by 2. Not just 1, not just 2, not 21, not 22, not 11, just 1, 2, 12. So go ahead, pause the video, try each exercise in one of the regex testers, and then you can just save your answers, write them down, copy and paste them to a file or something, and then resume the video and I'll take them up and you can check your own answers. Okay, hopefully you had a chance to try each of these exercises. I'm going to flip over to the regex tester and we're going to give them a try. So for some of these, I'm going to get rid of this text here. For some of these exercises that we do throughout these videos, you might need to add extra text. I have a couple of occurrences of the word foo in here somewhere, but maybe not enough for you to try. So that's fine, just add some. So if I want to match our first exercise, was to match the word foo, F-O-O, in all uppercase letters. So we're going to do that one first. So it's nice and easy. I want to match an uppercase F, followed by an uppercase O, and another uppercase O. So I've got 3 tokens, an F, an O, and another O. So obviously, if I have foo, that's going to match. Let me put some different foos in here. Foo, 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 foo. Let's do a foo-foo and a foo-foo. Whoops. And then maybe like some of these. You ever do this? There we go. Those are O's, not zeros. I know they look like O's. And let's do a couple of spelled incorrectly. There we go. So, foo, all uppercase letters, it matches. There's a match there. And it found 2 matches. See, these are 2 matches. One is character numbers 20 to 22. And the other one is 23 to 25. And then there's a 4th match there. So that was nice and easy. Now, if I wanted to match the word, I think the next one was the word foo, foo in either upper or lowercase letters, I can do that. Now, there's 2 correct answers. Obviously, we're going to use our case insensitive flag. If you just add the flag, there you go. You've got the correct answer. Look, it matches all the foos. We have all the foos. Now, I could have also done this. Oops, not that, because that's the same thing. My caps lock was on. I could have done this. This matches all the exact same things. When you have the case insensitive flag on, it doesn't matter what case you type your tokens in. You can type them in any case you want. There you go. Now, like I said, there's other ways that we can test for upper and lower case, and we're going to cover those in later videos because they can be useful in specific situations. Now, our last one was the number 12. For the 12, I don't need the case insensitive flag because we don't have upper and lower case digits. So if I want to match a 1 followed by the number 2, then I just literally type 1 and 2. So if I scroll through, oh, there's a 12. So there's a 12. There's a 12, there's a 12. Notice that it's not matching. Again, you can add some characters if you want. It's not matching 11 or 22. It's not matching 21, right? It doesn't match a 2 or a 1 by itself. It's only matching a 1 immediately followed by a 2. Look at that. If you were able to do those, you've started working with regular expressions. You can now officially say, hey, I know a little bit of regex. Good for you. So that's the basics of how regular expressions work, but obviously there's so much more that you can do. We're going to begin to look at more useful regular expressions and patterns by introducing character classes in the next video. So until then, thanks for watching.